Hello, welcome to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development. On today's show, we'll be talking transfers again, a bit on TST, welcome to Wrexham, and a very special Rob, Ryan, Red sponsorship programme as well. All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
Well, Nath, a different backdrop for you again today. Whereabouts are you? You jet setting once again?
Bratislava, Slovakia for the under 21 Euros. No Wales involved, unfortunately, here covering England. So, yeah, I'm in a hotel room in Old Town Bratislava. Which, to be fair, if we'd done this a day earlier, I would have been here and you would have been in Switzerland.
Yeah, I was in Zurich. I did a brief tour of Switzerland ahead of the Women's European Championship this summer, just to look about the place, really, see what the transport links and stuff were like. I wish I was in Brussels instead, though, to watch Wales in that game against Belgium, which I know was heartbreaking at the end. But yeah, continental edition of Triple R this week. And again, maybe apologies if at any point the connection's choppy, whatever. Nath is in Bratislava. Come on, give us some slack here. And apologies to whoever it was that emailed in and said that I give Nath no respect by talking over him on the podcast. That isn't due to internet connection. I just don't respect him. So that's absolutely fine. Transfers, Nath. No new signings yet. There was a blurry image doing the rounds maybe of someone spotted at the Kairos, but yeah, no new signings in the first section of the transfer window that closed on Tuesday.
No, I didn't really think it was massively important to Wrexham. I mean, that window was solely really to benefit clubs in the Club World Cup, which Wrexham are at least a few years away from being involved in that. Although I did see somebody say that FIFA would have had a lot easier job selling tickets for that tournament. If I don't know if you saw this, Rich, that for one of the games that involved Lionel Messi, and they've kind of shoehorned him into the tournament with Inter Miami, they were offering tickets for as low as $20, and if you bought one of those, you got 4 complimentary. You basically got 5 tickets for $20. And somebody in the replies to that said that FIFA would have had a lot better job if Wrexham had been involved, just in terms of the actual interest. But there we go. That is by the by. Yes, I saw and I checked out that thing about that there's a player at the ground, and the individual who does really good drone footage actually put out a message saying that they'd seen the individual. They weren't going to put the footage out just to sort of not screw the club over, which was very generous on their part. And if you haven't watched those drone videos, by the way, they're really good in terms of the pitch redevelopment and the stand development that I would highly recommend. But yeah, no transfers as of yet. I still think, maybe we'll come on to the squad rule and everything, I still think we're going to have a really busy summer. It never felt likely that the first window was going to do much for us.
I'm always a bit sceptical of teams who do their business really early in the windows anyway. I mean, it's good to get the fans on side, isn't it? And say, this is the mission we're making for next season. But you need to wait for these retained lists. You need to wait and see what opportunities arise. And you don't want to go too early sometimes. I know we say it almost as a catchphrase that Wrexham will do some of their bigger business later in the window this summer, as we've come to expect really since the takeover under Phil Parkinson. And yes, particularly this summer with those Premier League loan players that we'll be after, because as Sutty said when he was on the podcast, they'll be involved in pre-season tours. They'll be involved in the summer schedule while players are away on international duty or having extended breaks. First few games of pre-season, the Premier League clubs tend to play the kids, and then they sort of cut it down a bit towards the end before the Premier League starts. So yeah, don't expect anything imminent from Wrexham's point of view. Maybe just this blurry man who's signed whenever that is finally announced. And like you said there, Nath, as well, I think it is worth pointing out to anyone who's not aware, this season there was a special rule where the transfer window opened early for about 10 days just for that Club World Cup. So yeah, nothing on that one. I suppose the most interesting news, though, does regard to Wales internationals. And we're recording this, 9 years to the day since Wales beat Slovakia in the European Championship opener. Ben Davies with that clearance off the line. Danny Ward as well, after Wayne Hennessy did his backing on the flight over. Ben Davies has signed the new Tottenham contract. Does that end any chance of him joining Wrexham, do you think?
If I get into the kind of pedantic nature of it, they've simply triggered their option on him. So, he has not made any decision really on his future. They've just taken up their option, protected their asset, which any good club should do. I think had we had an option on Sam Dolby, we probably would have triggered that, midway through that season if it was our club option. Obviously, that wasn't the case, and he's joined Bolton on a 4-year deal, which I think when he left us, I don't think many would have seen that coming, right? If he just said he's going to end up at Bolton, at one of the powerhouses in the lower leagues on a 4-year deal, that would have been unlikely. So Spurs have just simply, their manager is not yet in place. It might be by the time this comes out, Thomas Frank. We all expect that to go through, and he may want Ben Davies as part of his squad. He may not. They may have just protected their asset. So I think it's unlikely now. I understand that. People saying, well, it's probably not going to happen now. It's not going to happen now. Probably not. But I actually don't think them triggering an extension completely wipes any possibility of him leaving the football club. I think it's purely a financial, a clever marketing and a clever accounting move, really. At least you're going to get some money if Ben Davies does end up moving on.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the big change at Tottenham is just, like you said, the manager, because he's now uncertain until a new manager's appointed. He's actually had a meeting with him. The manager's established what he wants for next season. It's just going to kick the can down the road before anyone gets any guidance on what Ben Davies is going to have with regards to his future. Really, he could suddenly have this renaissance, this resurgence, or they could change formation. He becomes surplus to requirements. There is so much that could happen now, like you said, that's going to be a managerial change. And yeah, it's just smart from a football club to protect the business, and that they would get a nominal fee at the very least now for Ben Davies if he were to leave. But it made sense to keep him around until a new manager has had a chance to cast his own verdict of the squad. So like you, Nath, I agree that Ben Davies is probably unlikelier, but he's not completely ruled out still for me. I think there is still a chance he could be on the move this summer. That doesn't automatically mean Wrexham either, it must be said. And the other one, Nath, Danny Ward, rumours that he could be on his way to the Racecourse. There was a stage where I used to get giddy over the thought of signing any former Wrexham player back. Danny Ward's not one of them for me right now.
No, that feels... we'll just get called spoil or whatever, but that feels an unnecessary and expensive third choice. Because I think you just look at the capabilities of the goalkeepers right now. Danny Ward, in his heyday, brilliant player, but you wouldn't have him ahead of Arthur Okonkwo, who I think there was some story linking him with a move away that was ridicule with plenty of laughing emojis from people close to him. So I don't think that's happening anytime soon. And then Callum Burton, who got his flowers in the documentary. Fine, you might say Danny Ward's better than Luke McNicholas if you want to argue that, but Danny Ward would be on a lot of money, and I feel like that might be Tom Kearney 2.0. Is he just trying to use Wrexham to keep his name out there, drum up interest from the actual club he wants to end up at, or the contract he wants to get at Leicester? I really don't know, but it's what I do feel like every day I log on and there's a new player linked to Wrexham. It's going to be a long summer. And I spoke to somebody quite well connected, because there was that Les Reed piece, right, as well, that came out talking about they're looking for specific players in the Championship, that ready-made for the Championship. I spoke to someone in the game that had some dealings with Wrexham in terms of players and just offering up and whatnot. And their verdict to me was that there's a real lack of organisation in terms of the recruitment side of things. Their verdict was that agents are having a lot of sway in terms of it's very agent driven rather than kind of a clear joined up way of thinking. That their verdict was multiple voices, that whether that's Williamson or Parkey or Harvey or Les Reed or whoever the individuals are, they're purely their personal experience. Their verdict was that it was a little bit jumbled, and I don't think that filled me with great optimism going into the what is a massive window in the Championship. But we shall see. It's not backfired on us yet, and I know that the higher up you go, the more expensive the deals become, the harder they are to get over the line, the bigger the agent fee, image rights come into play, all these manner of things. So it gets trickier. But based on that conversation I had with someone very well connected, it gave me pause for thought, if nothing else.
Two of the players that we mentioned that Les Reed interview were Kevin De Bruyne. He's off to Napoli, so we can kill that dream maybe now. And Jamie Vardy as well, another player who's perennially linked maybe with Wrexham. A player he was name checked saying we're not going to sign someone like that. That's not the remit this season. And again, urge you to go back and listen to that interview we had with Richard Sutcliffe in The Athletic 2 weeks ago, where he said, look, if you look back last season, the age profile of our squad did get much younger as the season went on, and the team that started the season was very different to the one that finished it. But because obviously Jay Rodriguez was leading the line for much of it, supporting Sam Smith, you just kind of presumed we were still signing old guys. But, you had him and McLean playing big roles, but the rest of the team was still very young, and it is still very young. So it doesn't make too much sense to go for those sort of players. And yeah, it's exciting though, Nath, isn't it? Because we see both sides of the coin in our roles. We see the incessant links with players, and honestly, Wrexham are on a par now with Man United in terms of you link a player with them just to try drum up interest and try and get some clicks, because that's another aspect of this. From a journalistic point of view, most journalists are judged on page views. Putting Wrexham in a headline, that gets you interest, that gets you clicks. So that's another aspect for you to consider. The way agents operate, saying your player is linked to Wrexham is a very good thing to do for their own profile as well, just to make other teams alert or to make other teams rush into making decisions as well. So always take these with a pinch of salt. That should be our motto, which when you're speaking, Nath, anyway. Another rumour that's doing the rounds, and this one seems maybe one of the more credible ones so far this summer. I know Elliot Jackson from the Lancashire Telegraph, who did the piece as well, so he's someone I've worked with closely. I think we've had him on the podcast before, actually, maybe before the FA Cup tie, didn't we? And he says that Blackburn captain Lewis Travis is a player who Wrexham are interested in. Suggestions he might be on £25,000 to £35,000 a week. Centre defensive midfielder. That would be a very ambitious play if you went and got a captain out of another Championship team. It sounds like the sort of business that Parky would like to do. And I guess, Nath, a week after we discussed the midfield, maybe my calls that I'd love to see George Dobson given a chance in the Championship would quickly be ended if Travis signed.
Yeah, it's like I said, I just have the feeling that based on that Les Reed interview as well, that they're looking for bona fide Championship players, like players that they know can do at the level. That's why I think Harry Darling, I think there's real interest there. I think Travis, that there's real interest there. And nothing against Dobson, he just never played outside of League One. Is that his fault? Probably not entirely. Obviously, definitely not entirely. But you asked me before on WhatsApp, where do you think we'll finish? And obviously, we'll do that before you were doing it for your 4-4-2 piece, which we were talking about last week. And I actually find that a really difficult question to answer right now as of June the 11th, because it feels totally contingent on the transfer business. Like if we go out and sign 5, captains of teams that aren't necessarily flashy, but they're just like solid players, we'll be fine in the Championship. We may even be fine as is, but it'll be very lower down in terms of how fine we would be. And if you really go in and make some serious moves, that's when you start to talk about top half playoffs and, dare I say, automatics. It for once, it feels like even without the our sort of mid-season business, it felt like we would always be in and around the top 6. I know we had us top 10, didn't we? But we kind of revised that after a couple of months, where we'd seen a lot of the teams. Felt like top 6 was always likely to be achievable, and we never dropped below third in the end after the second game week or something like that, third game week. And the Championship feels so contingent on transfers. It feels like that will make or break our entire season. And someone emailed in, actually, I forget the name right now. I daren't touch anything in this Bratislavan hotel room to lose the connection even more so than I already have got it, about the squad rules. And I think it's important to note that, unlike in League 1 and 2, goalkeepers are included. Goalkeepers over the age of 21 are included in your cap. So you are allowed to register a 25-man squad. That includes your goalkeepers. League 2 and League 1, it's a 22-man squad that doesn't include your goalkeepers. So, those 3 extra spots, you might say, well, that's just 3 goalkeepers. But Wrexham have a lot of players under contract, a lot of players they want to sign, a lot of players they need to shift. And getting people to Wrexham, as I think Rich said to Ryan Reynolds on a recent pod, You don't really have to sell players on that now. Getting people out the doors another matter entirely.
That is the difficulty, and that's what's fascinating as well for me to see what happens this summer. You mentioned there, Nath, the squad rules. It was Matt Turk who emailed in for us. Just before we get onto them, I want to say on Lewis Travis, that almost strikes me as like when we signed Ben Tozer. You know, you're getting a bona fide Football League captain in then when we brought him down to non-league. You know, he's someone who'd been there and done it. Maybe now we also need a championship equivalent of Paul Mullin, someone who's been one of the top scorers in the championship before, who knows whether, who'd be a real coup. We need them up top, and you can get a Premier League loanee or two, hopefully, which would really take us to the next level. But to me, it feels like Travis would be that kind of Tozer type of player, where again, he's not maybe the sexiest name or one of these players who is gonna get you as excited as a household Premier League name, but he could easily be one of the best signings we make if that happens.
I'll tell you who would be that just screams like championship nailed on to do well. I don't know how old he is now, but every time Adam Armstrong has been in the championship, now there's probably no need for Southampton to get rid of him. He'd be very beneficial to Southampton in the same league. But Adam Armstrong would be that type where he's probably on the older side, experience. You wouldn't need much managing through the week. But every time he's in the championship, he rips it up. And every time he gets to the Premier League, I mean, you know this, Rich, like he's never quite good enough. Maybe he's just in bad teams, but like he's never quite good enough for the Premier League. But he's too good for the Championship. I felt like that a bit about Dwight Gale back in the day. I don't know where he is now, League Two or something. But there's those kind of players. There are some players that are just Championship legends, for want of a better word. And I feel like that's kind of where Adam Armstrong sort of falls. So while I'm not saying Wrexham are going to get Adam Armstrong, that would be the type of move where you just go like, he's just a goal getter. You just know he would get you 20 plus in a good team. So yeah, curious, very, very curious how the season pans out.
You mentioned there as well the squad rules then. So 27 at the moment registered for Wrexham. Like you said, need to cut it to 25, including the goalkeepers who are over the age of 21, which is everyone at the moment. Okonkwo's 23. I think 25 is Callum Burton, maybe even older than that. So I had the list here up in front of me. Oh, 28 Callum Burton is. So then if you added Danny Ward as well, that is quite clearly your free slots are taken up. If you look at what Luke McNicholas, I think even he's 25 years old. So maybe the argument is if you want to sign a new keeper this summer, you go for one who's under 21 because there'd be a free addition to the squad. But what it does raise, Nath, is we're talking about how excited we are for new signings. And of course, that's what gets, is all excited on social media. But that just adds to the conundrum of who to drop. Are there any players right now who you just see as, okay, other than the retained list? We know Howard's going, we know Fletcher going, so that's two of them solved. But any other players that you do just see as that's it, they're just not going to be playing in the Championship, they're going, who are under contract, guaranteed departures this summer?
Got to move on, Will Boyle. Lovely head of hair, but it's time to go, I think, for him, because he needs to play. Luke Bolton, I think you've, again, got to go. I still believe firmly that Fall probably needs to go out on loan. I know Andy, friend of ours on the Fearless Pod, was saying that, listening to him, he said that he actually thinks, there's still a player there, need to be patient, need to give him time. Just don't see him getting the minutes in a front two. I just can see us signing some strikers. I think a loan move for him would be good. I think Palmer's probably got to go. Really, I just think I struggle to see how players who weren't involved, weren't making the bench in the back end of a League One campaign, are suddenly going to find another level where the jump is significant. I was banging the drum about Gelhard when he went to Hull, and I really wanted him before he went there. He did well, don't get me wrong, but he didn't light it up. He was still at a team that was near the bottom and ended up sacking Sellers, right? They stayed up. Asgard went down with Luton, and Wrexham fans really wanted him, right, when he was at Wigan. I honestly think you need to have quite a ruthless summer. I know that's hard. I know getting on the documentary in a bit, and they spend so much time in that talking about some stories are still being written, and other people, their story's done. The book is closed on it. It's tough. I think you need to move Palmer. I think you need to move Mullin, really. I know there's so much sentiment about give him another pre-season and give him chance. I don't think everything last season was down to fitness. It can't have been, because he was available for months and months. And I know everything that went through. But I just think if you weren't even getting a sniff, you weren't even close to the team at the back end of last season, as we saw with like maybe Luke Young the season before, or James Jones and whatnot, you're definitely not going to play on the league above. You were talking about Dobson, Rich, and maybe Matty James. Those players might become squad players, but they were starters. They're regulars in League One, right? So those regulars become starters, and then new ones come in and they become starters, replace the regulars. So yeah, to cut a long sort of answer short, I would say Boyle, Bolton, Mendy, Mullin, Palmer, a far loan. That would free up 6 spots, and there's probably some people in there that I'm missing.
Gorgeous George.
Another 7.
It's like you said, it's so difficult now, isn't it? Because there's so many of these players that we've got this attachment to, and you know what they're capable of. But in the case of Mullin, I think he played 32 times last season. Like you said, there does come a point. I know it's tedious for a lot of fans to hear this because we've gone over it so many times, but he did have his chance in League One. But did he have his chance with a full pre-season? Do you think maybe the Mullin one's a call you make late in the summer? You give him a pre-season, look how sharp he's doing.
He'll be the one that they're so reluctant to let go, but I still think does have value. I think Palmer has value. I think a lot of those players do have value, just not at a championship level. And it was in season 1 of the documentary. Like, not everyone can go all the way with you, unfortunately. And Mullen will be the one they don't want to move as much as they can. And look, there's a lot of players to get out the door, Rich. They're all on contracts. They're all well within their rights to sit there and stay on those contracts. They signed them. The club offered them. They signed them. Can have very few complaints. It's a short career. If you're not going to get a deal worth half as much somewhere else, I don't blame any of these players. So it's I don't know. Getting players in, I think, is the easy part. Getting players out is a real tough task.
And again, the other tricky scenario of that is you're going into the Championship now, where I know we're a fantastic project, and I know Sooty said this before, that the likes of Fletcher and McLean absolutely love it here and really do think they are the most enjoyable sort of football club they've had their whole career, and that is massive. But there are going to be teams who can offer more than this summer. And maybe if you've got to sign a player, you've got to offer them 3-4 years. You've got to give them a Dolby deal. Do you know what I mean? You've got to do what Bolton have done there and give them that security. But that can come back to haunt you down the line, can't it? Particularly with the fact that you don't know what level we'll be competing at next season. You don't know, if it's going to be one season in the Championship either way, or whether it's going to be 10, 15 years there as well. It is so difficult, the squad building, isn't it? And again, it just comes down to what is the ambition? What is the actual footballing ambition of the club next season, which is going to be so fascinating. But like you said there, Nath, I think if you asked maybe a neutral to analyse our squad, they could be quite ruthless with who should come and who should go, shouldn't they? Maybe it is that emotional attachment we've got that makes it a harder decision. I would say now maybe email us in, robbrownred@gmail.com. Email us, contact us on our Rob Brown Red webpage as well. We've updated the chants section there as well. There's now an easy way to find the Wrexham chants and songs and lyrics, and how to watch Wrexham matches as well, which we'll update fully once we've got the fixture list and all that for next season. And let us know in the comments below, who should Wrexham get rid of this summer? We always talk about who we should sign, and you've all been fantastic with that, giving us so many suggestions. And there was a really good email this week as well, which I might even read out if I can find it now, about player suggestions that we were handed. But who do you think we should get rid of there? I think 6 or 7 we've come up there with Nath, and maybe 8 if you got rid of a keeper and got a younger one in as well.
Yeah, so that would open up a lot of room to manoeuvre the squad. It's hard to do in one window, but I don't know. I think that a lot of things have been hard for Wrexham, and they've managed to do them. So I don't sort of put anything off the table.
Right, here's the email from John Zeman then. He emailed in, Nath.
Right.
I make it about 10 minutes after we finished recording last week. So, he only just missed the deadline, but we are still going to give him a chance to be heard on the podcast. Let us know what you think of John's suggestions here. He said, and I love this, Nath, the email starts, "Hear me out. As an alternative to Charlie Savage, I think Wrexham should pursue Kanya Fujimoto, who is available on a free transfer out of Gil Vicente in Liga Portugal. Gil Vicente, I've never known how to pronounce their name. The word is that Birmingham have eyes on him too. They might have the inside track via Tomoko Iwata though. More experienced player than Charlie Savage, and he's playing in a better league. If we were going to look at a Reading player, I would want us to go for Harvey Nibbs instead. On the developmental side, I believe Wrexham should also pursue Malik Mothersile from Peterborough on the left side as a future wing-back. Or Mothersill. I think he ran as ragged at home, I seem to believe.
Yeah, was he the one who ran as ragged in that cup semi-final? I think he might have got that goal because we were all singing "Que sera, sera, whatever will be," and then Mothersille scored. He actually had a really poor start to the season and ended it as one of the most informed players in the EFL. So yeah, really, really interesting player. Funny because they were playing him as a striker, so to say that he could be a wing back, I don't hate that shout. It's very curious.
Next, he's got two more. He says, on the next gen side, Damien Downs from FC Cologne, who I believe is Haji Wright 2.0. I actually brought him up. He said he brought him up in the YouTube comments back in December when we were asking for transfer suggestions as well. So Damien Downs at FC Cologne. And again, maybe much more achievable to get now you're a championship club rather than a League One team. You do see players leave Bundesliga and Bundesliga 2 teams to go to the championship more so than League One. And his last suggestion, he says, this is wishful thinking. I hope there are one or two Aussie Socceroos that are on the flight back to Wrexham in the near future as a result of the team's upcoming trip down under. One is Nishan Velapillai, who unfortunately is recovering from an ankle injury sustained in the A-League playoffs. Hopefully he's available to play in the exhibition against Wrexham this summer. He doesn't say what position it is or anything, but I'm going to take your word for that one, John. Thank you very much for your suggestions. And again, like we said, if you've got any emails, please do get them in now. robbrownred@gmail.com. The summer schedule is a bit kinder, so it means we should get more chance to answer them.
Right, Rich, talking of kind and having sort of time and ideas on our hands, we got approached by one of the listeners, a friend of the podcast, a guy called Jamal, who's actually been on the podcast before, many, many moons ago, if you're a long-time listener. And he got in touch to say, would Rob Ryan Red, who hasn't put their logo on anything, we've been so rubbish with merchandise, we've been slacking, we know. We are working on a limited supply of something very, very soon. But he said, would we help him with his team? He set up a semi-pro team in South Texas, Rich. And he said, look, I've been inspired to do this because of Wrexham, because of the Wrexham story, because of the community of Wrexham. And as a kind of thank you for helping put, him onto Wrexham and keeping him up to date every week, would we put our logo on the training top? So without further ado, here is a chat I had with Jamal about why he wants to get the podcast involved, why we're supporting them, and how you can follow a team that is desperate to go from one of the semi-pro leagues all the way to being fully pro. Right, so this is long overdue, but I'm getting this done because the rest of the episode I will be in Bratislava, Slovakia, as you will see. But here I am in the UK. Jamal is with me with his Wrexham cap on, which we love. Jamal's actually been on the channel before, so if you've listened for a long time, which I know based on some of the emails we got this week, you've listened for years and years and years, as has Jamal. He's been on the channel before. But we thought that we would get Jamal back on because it's an interesting story, Jamal, because you started up your own team loosely inspired by the Wrexham story, and we're involved as well. Give us a bit of a flavour before we talk about Rob Ryan Red and how that's involvement.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say loosely. If it wasn't for Wrexham, I don't think this happens. If it wasn't for the story of Wrexham, if it wasn't for me seeing it firsthand, what happens when the community gets behind a club, I don't think that we would help bring a semi-pro club to my community. Let me give you the elevator pitch. So I worked in the USL Championship for a professional club. Basically, the club was what happens when you don't have a community backing it up and it dissolves. So we were, Wrexham is a fairy tale story. We were the bad side of that, I guess. And so we went without a club and I was done, right? I was done working in soccer. I just wanted to be a fan. I go to England, finally get to experience Premier League football in person. And it was going to Wales, seeing Wrexham, and it was the Wrexham Blizzard game against Southend. And seeing that match, and look, like Wrexham did a lot in inspiring this story, but so did Southend United. The fans that all traveled all the way to Wrexham, they were loud the entire game. And again, this was a blizzard match. It was rainy. It was cold. It was just the worst like physical atmosphere, right? But they made it into one of the most memorable games. And I remember I had this like epiphany, like this could work at home. I think the difference was it can't be corporate if we were going to do something. It had to be community first. And that's when everything just kind of came around where we can make this work if we make it about the community first. And keep in mind, I think we get a lot of American viewers of what's happening in Wrexham, and everyone says the same thing. This reminds me of home. Rob said it in episode 1. This reminds me of Philly. I'm in the poorest county in the whole United States. I'm in this part of the United States where we're on the top of every bad list and on the bottom of every good list. We're the most overweight. We're the least educated. We're the poorest county, and that doesn't reflect us. It's amazing people. It's people that will help you if you're stranded on the side of the road. It's a lot like the people of Wrexham that welcomed me with open arms and invited me for a beer, invited me to their house for dinner, invited me to go mountain biking. That's our community. And so I just saw so many parallels, and the Wrexham story is basically why we decided to provide a community-based club. I mean, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun by talking about how Rob, Ryan, and Red and how it all ties together, but I've reached out to you, told you the story, and it's like I want Wrexham to be a part of this. Now I know Wrexham is mainstream now, right? Like locals might not want to hear that, but you guys are big time. Wrexham is talked about the same way Americans talk about Man U, Liverpool, Juventus, and Madrid. And so I know I can't call Wrexham and say, hey guys, I would love to honor what you guys have going on. So I thought, well, what's the next best option? What about the podcast that talks about Wrexham? And and it's like, you guys have been amazing. And you know, talking to me and responding to my emails and my tweets. And so it just made sense as like a nod to Wrexham and to that Wrexham Southend match and to everything going on, that we try to thank you all in one way or another. And I just thought putting you on the trainer shirt would be the perfect nod without, you know, losing our culture, I guess, as well.
For sure. So we should say, I'm going to play the clip now of some of your players getting the training kit, and you can see the logo, which is loud and proud on the training kit. So as you can see, we should say the name of the team, RGV Red Crowns, right? And you've got the piece of merchandise on. There is a scarf behind you. The home shirt I love, red and green. Obviously, it's very specific to. There you go, Rob Brown Red. You can see on the training kit and the badge. When I was chatting to you just on text, and we'll just keep this nice and short. But when I was chatting to you about all the things that go into running a team, like designing a badge and choosing the colours for the kit and finding players and sorting out the stadium and sorting out prices. And has it opened your eyes in terms of just how much goes into, because obviously Wrexham now has got a lot of backing and all that, but Wrexham haven't always had that. And while you're another level down at semi-pro, has it opened your eyes of just how much the volunteers and things need to do to get these clubs off the ground?
Yeah, the biggest eye opener was coming from the fully pro side. When that was my 9 to 5, we had people for any little minute detail. Like we had a guy who was just responsible for the referees on game day. We had a guy who was responsible for the mascots who are going to walk out with the team. We had people for these. We had titles for these little things, right? Now, when you're fully volunteer, community based, it's a huge eye opener on what exactly is needed to run a club. We pride ourselves, as far as the front office, we're a bunch of football loving people. We're doing this out of passion, not out of getting a paycheck, which I love. I'm very appreciative of our whole front office. But there's a little saying we have inside is, we as a front office, we put the pro in semi-pro. So if you look at our socials, if you look at our website, everything we do, we try to act as professional as possible. What hurts us is that when people come, they're expecting this fully professional team and stadium, but you get there and you're seeing a stadium that was abandoned for 25 years. We're cleaning it up. You're seeing me. In one of the videos that you might show later, you're seeing a guy fill up water bottles. That's me. I fill up water bottles for practice. That's part of my role as the president / owner. And it's all of us. Like, there's no title that's too big to do anything, whether that's picking up trash after the game, whether that's serving popcorn during the game, whether that's helping the guys do the laundry for the kits. It's been a huge eye opener on what exactly is needed, but it's also an eye opener on what's possible when you get people that are just passionate in what they believe in. And I don't mean that in just the sporting landscape, just across the board. When you get people who are passionate, it's amazing the mountains you can move, so to speak.
We know it well, as you saw that day where people were shoveling snow off the pitch for us to beat Southend, which was vitally important in that season. I guess before we end on maybe how people can support the team and where they can get any merchandise and help things out, Wrexham, we had a quick chat about maybe could they get any players out of MLS. What do we think they're going to do in the Championship? I've been on the podcast before, had G Wright, and people have mentioned Josh Sargent and Patrick Adjiman we mentioned recently. How do you see the summer going for Wrexham? Do you think that next step is landing a sort of a marquee American, or do you think they'll go for a bit more of a low key kind of summer?
I don't know. I think they need to go with the big splash. Does it have to be American? I don't think so. I think with the new partnership you have with Necaxa, I could see a very good Mexican player perhaps coming to Wrexham. I've been very vocal on socials. Aguiman is my guy. If we can get him, I'm getting an Aguiman Wrexham shirt. I think he is the future striker for the U.S. men's team. I think he's a diamond in the rough. The other guy that I really love is the I'm pulling up a blank right now. The midfielder,
Not Diego Luna, is that the one
Diego
you
Luna.
you take? Right.
Yeah, he doesn't have the size necessarily for championship. He's on the shorter end, but he has the heart. And there's a story going out right now. Clint Dempsey talking about Diego Luna reminded him of himself. Broken nose, popped it back in, went back onto the pitch. I think the championship, you're going to need those kind of players with how rough it is and the physicality of it all. I think that's going to be the biggest difference from League One to the championship is the physicality. But I don't know. I think on the last podcast, you guys talked about that wild card signing, and I think it's Raul in Fulham. I think you get someone with Premier League experience. He's already on the older side. He showed that he still has something in the gas tank. And then again, you have that Mexican partnership with Eva Longoria and Necaxa. I could see Raul coming to Wrexham as that marquee signing, kind of what like Jay Rodriguez was last year.
Yeah, Raul Jimenez would be unbelievable at championship level. That'd be a ridiculous signing. Let's finish then. If people, firstly, if they're in South Texas, they might be able to come and watch you. If they're in Texas, they might be able to come watch your games. You're playing in Austin today when we record this, Dallas, all over the place. You've got a full schedule. Obviously, all your socials and everything will be in the description of the video, description of the Spotify. You know it by now. But if they want to get merch, because I want to get merch, I want to get myself a home kit, how can they do it? How can they support you?
Yeah, so a retweet and a like goes a long way, believe it or not. But if you actually want to help support this club, every penny literally counts. RGVRedCrowns.com. We have all of our merch available there. If you can make it out to a game, even better. We're in the Texas Conference in the League for Clubs. The League for Clubs is 4th Division American soccer. So the equivalent to like USL2 and PSL for those that are familiar. And yeah, just jump online. We deliver worldwide. We've delivered already to 20 states. And we've had one delivery overseas. So I'm hoping that increases after this episode. But honestly, like I tell everybody, so this is our slogan here locally. We're in a very rich soccer market. People here love the sport. They love their teams, though. They love their Tigres, their Americas. Mexican soccer is king where I'm at. I can look at my house and I can see Mexico. That's how close we are to the Mexican border. So I tell these fans like, hey, we don't have to be your favorite team. We just want to be your local team. So my challenge to Wrexham fans is we don't have to be your favorite team. We can just be your summer team.
Right. Well, there you go. That's a good pitch. And like I say, we've been so rubbish at doing any merch for Rob Ryan Red, which we're trying to fix this summer. But in the meantime, you can actually get something with our logo on it. So if that is for you, and we know a lot of people support the podcast over the years, one of which is Jamal, which is why I wanted to team up. RGV Red Crowns on all the socials. They're all in the description below if you're listening or watching. And I wish you all the best. One of these future episodes, I'm going to be wearing this RGV Crown shirt, and I will be reminding you. But yeah, all the best today when you're playing. It'll be, obviously this will be out a week or so later. But good luck in Austin. Good luck in the season, man. It's you will find all the ups and downs of being an owner. I'm sure very fun and very stressful in equal measure.
We're already there. If I had hair, it would have been gone by now. We're way past that. I've learned the hard way.
There you go. Rich, I thought that was really nice. You know, I think we might look down and say, well, we don't really know the kind of the Texas League and whatnot, and you've got all these players wearing a training shirt that is our logo on, but huge. I thought it was going to be quite small, but it's just our logo super size. So they everybody in the Texas League will know about Rob Ryan Red, whether they like it or not, in the warm-ups. But cool, isn't it? I think a lot of us would love to be able to do something like that, a project where you can just, you've got an ambition. He's been to Wrexham. He came over for that Southend match where they were shoveling snow off the pitch, and he thought, we can do this in my community. I thought it was quite cool.
Again, we're going to get onto Welcome to Wrexham soon, a bit of a review on that. And that is one of the great things about the documentary. It has, Rob and Ryan says a lot. They say there's a Wrexham everywhere, really. Every country, every sort of area's got a Wrexham. It's about shining the light on it, and it's about opening your eyes, really, to the potential that is around you. And what is it? There's the new Wrexham Lager sort of sponsor that you see. I think I saw quite a lot of TST. It was like, never underestimate someone from Wrexham. But you can almost apply it to everywhere, can't you? You just need to have that belief. And of course, we're very fortunate that Wrexham is a certain example. And we've had this exception because we've got two fantastic bastions for the football club who protect our interests and give us this world stage. But the same ethos applies to everywhere in the world. And it is an absolute honour and a privilege that our little logo is on there, because we rushed that out back when you listened back to, was it episode 1 and 2, when we didn't even have a podcast name and we didn't have a logo or anything, and then you just made it on a whim one night, and it's kind of become us. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy, and the fact that it's now on these shirts makes me wish that we'd maybe come up with a better logo for going on football shirts. Anyway, that was when I sent you over the remit. Can you design a podcast logo? It wasn't, can you design a podcast logo? It's going to be sponsoring a Texas football team in about 5 years' time as well. So, yeah, it's surreal. It's amazing. We are very honoured that anyone listens to this podcast anyway, but that any of you have been inspired enough to in some way, give back to your community as well from the Wrexham story. So, yeah, brilliant. And maybe we need to get ourselves some of those training shirts next to wear for the podcast.
2 are en route, or they are very, very soon. And I also want to get myself one of the RGV Red Crowns shirts. It's red and green stripes. It is the badge is incredible. All their links are in the description, as I said in that chat there with Jamal. Not just, if anything, our shirt, ignore that one with our logo on it. Their actual home shirt is incredible. It's, Welsh colours. It's obviously typically to do with the area, but I love it. And I don't know. I feel good that we can help support in any way, and I want to help them at least promote. And I'm sure I'll wear a shirt on a future episode, Rich. So yeah, as a nice kind of middle section, something a bit different while I'm in Bratislava and my signal is hanging on for dear life. I was determined to give Jamal sort of a little bit of time to tell his story.
I'd also say as well, if anyone is listening that for some reason wanted to join Jamal's trend and have Rob Ryan Red anything, let us know, because we would like to produce something for people if they want something. Do you know what I mean? We don't want to sell merch and force it down your throat and give you discount codes and all that crap and say, you've got to buy this. Like, if you want to buy anything Rob Ryan Red, let us know what you'd like us to actually make. What would you use? What would be of use to you? And drop it below, because we will try and give back to you in that way. And yeah, that would be a good way to know what you actually want.
Very quickly then, let's wrap it up, because like I say, the Slovak Wi-Fi is a touch slower than I thought it would be. TST, Drip FC, a weird sort of sentence is forming here. We lost. George Boyd missed a penalty. Maybe Legends isn't the way to go. Maybe it needs to be all Wrexham. Maybe it needs to be all local futsal players. I don't know. We didn't look close to winning the £1 million. A bit of fun, isn't it? I suppose. I know Mia Roberts was in the wars. You watched a couple of games. I mean, it's not going to go away for us, is it?
No, I mean, Drip FC sounds like the sort of comment someone would leave on one of our videos or something, or a comment after we've just beaten them 2-1 with a last-minute Stephen Fletcher winner, doesn't it? Disney Drip FC. I enjoy it. It's very special for what it is. It's never going to replace the actual 11-a-side game for me, but it is a bit of summer fun. It's something a bit different. I like that games don't just end after a team's gone 3 or 4-0 up. There still is a chance for them to get back in. I kind of like that it's got those sort of early prototype MLS rules that a player gets taken off every 2 or 3 minutes, which is quite fun. Yeah, it's fun, it's jolly, and like you said, I think when you watch the tournament, you realise that a very different profile of footballer shines in TST to the professional game, which from a Wrexham point of view, on both the male and the men's and women's teams, that's maybe why we don't go too far in these tournaments, because our players are used to playing 11-a-side, and it's a very different skill set. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Congratulations to the team that did win it in the end. It was really fun, and Nath as well. Watching us absolutely smash Bournemouth, and that George Boyd goal was utter filth.
Yeah, that was worth it. And off the pitch, I know we're waiting for updates on the COP to start, and it doesn't sound like progress is forthcoming on that. Hopefully, that's a sort of double jinx, and Thursday when this is out, that they're announcing it's starting, but it seems like things are a little bit slower than I expected there. The pitch has been going in. That's a few weeks away from really sort of showing. TST we had, and welcome to Wrexham. Rob came on this podcast, said that they were going to say goodbye to Arthur in an episode. That was episode 5 just gone. And I think for me, still, the episode where Arthur was still alive and he stood on the temporary cop, and that was still the best moment, I think, of Welcome to Wrexham. That was Welcome to Wrexham at its finest, but you have to say this was right up there, top 2, top 3 moment, really. Beautifully done, just really powerful television, right? And Rob said about on the podcast, and he said it in his own words, but he said along the lines of how proud he was and what a privilege it is to get to tell some really, really difficult stories and say goodbye to, people in Wrexham knew Arthur Massey, and they show you people lying in the streets outside the turf, clapping the coffin as it's being driven through. But people around the world learned who Arthur Massey was. I remember putting an Instagram post out at the time he passed, Rich, and the amount of comments from all over the globe was, unbelievable and great for his family. And Lee Jones is on the documentary, and his daughters, obviously we met them in Vancouver. I thought that was everything you would want a tribute to be. So, to Rob and Ryan, we said it when they came on, just a massive thank you. That was as sort of poetic as you could have done it. And I know it's not just you two. I know you would say the whole team, and there's a lot of people that go into it, but that showed me just an underline of an underline of an underline that you are just part of the community. That film crew, that editing crew, that they just get it. And that was, if you needed to show Welcome to Wrexham, you could show them that episode. And I don't know, I was quite emotional watching the kind of the hologram of Arthur walking through. I thought it was unbelievable.
Yeah, when I watched that clip again on the Wrexham socials, and that bit really that made me choke up, because it makes you think of all the people who also we have lost previously on the journey. And I always think we have a family friend who was Rob Belton, that some people listening will know. He went to Wrexham games, Wales games all the time, and passed away months before the takeover even happened. Before that happened, he knew Wrexham as typical Wrexham, still a non-league team, and it makes you just think of all those we've lost. And of course, I know for me as well, Jacko used to sit sort of 2 rows in front of him in the tech end, and I remember him berating one of my friends for not singing loud enough at a match, and we always rib him for that, and it's brilliant. And just again on the Arthur tribute, it's weird because the whole vehicle for this podcast, for the documentary, is football, but football's also the least important thing. Is it Bob Paisley's quote that it's the most important of the least of the non-important things in life, and that is so true. And again, I do just want to say thank you to everyone who's involved in the documentary, because it was a really real concern when the takeover was announced that we were going to have this mockumentary, hilarious, laughing at Wrexham. But the camera's not pointing down on us; it's pointing up on us and making us look even greater and bigger than we were. And yeah, it's brilliant. And like you said, it's a football documentary, docuseries, and the best moments haven't been about football at all.
Yeah, although Rich, I did just a final word from me, because it's my laptop is fighting for its life. I did very much enjoy the halftime team talk, or not the halftime team talk, the halftime and the full-time chat, I would say, after losing at home to Stevenage, where James McLean was talking about they're making Dan Kemp look like Messi, which on the night, I think he was probably made to look like he was in that 2008 Barcelona team or 2009 Barcelona team. And then at the end, Steve Parkin saying, you've got to earn the right to play, and you didn't earn the right tonight. And he's a savage, Steve Parkin. I know Parky can let loose, and that was what, like, in the early seasons of the documentary, that was like what was really getting people going, and those are the clips. But Steve Parkin just has to say a couple of words. Doesn't even need to swear at you. He might have done in the clip. I can't fully remember, but it was just like a cold-blooded killer. He just absolutely undressed all those players by questioning their desire and their mentality and their just effort, really. And that must have been one of the most gut-wrenching things, because those are the things you should never be able to question, right? If you lose via quality. So, yeah, it's not been loads about the football, but that was clearly a key moment in the season before they go and get Sam Smith and Jay Rodriguez. And yeah, from someone who likes seeing the football side of things, that was really interesting.
Right. Should we end there, or do you want us to end on corporate season tickets? Or should we just cut that, yeah?
I reckon just end, yeah. We can come back to it next week. Okay. My signal's fighting for his life.
Fine. Yeah, sweet. Well, Nath, that's all for another, what we said was going to be a quiet week of Rob Ryan Red, but ended on as waffling once again. Thank you to you for putting up with our connection, Nath. What a hero you are out in Bratislava doing this.
We dropped out once. I think the Slovakian Wi-Fi, we'll give it a 5 out of 10. It dropped out once. Hopefully, if you're listening, it'll sound all right. I didn't drop out at all if you were listening. If you were watching, 1 or 2 jump cuts won't scare you. It's all fine.
Yeah, they don't need to know. We lifted the magician's cloth, though. We didn't need to do that. Thank you very much. Like we said, let us know in the comments below, who should Wrexham get rid of this summer? We talk about transfers. What about outgoings? robryanred@gmail.com. You can get on our website as well. Thank you very much to Red 10 People Development for your continued support of the podcast, and to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings. But most of all, thank you to you, wherever you are, you worldwide Reds. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.
A Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.